Hello, everyone. Apologies for the slight delay. Now, in terms of who we're putting the blame on here, we collectively, as a trio, we can all take a portion of the blame. Obviously, we had to wait for... Well, that's gone well. I'm not pointing any fingers or thumbs. Obviously, we had to wait for Pete Carroll to give us an update on stuff. It's 5:35 a.m. here.
Mm-hmm. Matty, we gotta
I'm
get you
very
some
tired.
help, son.
Right.
I don't get tired.
We're worried about you.
You're worried about me.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
Thank
I
you very much, Jay.
I missed
let's
the
see
hat
what.
memo. Like I
So
never
what
knew
was
that was a
chat
thing.
discussing?
Yeah, you never follow through on the hat memo.
I know. I didn't know there's supposed to be hats.
There's always hats.
I have a metaphorical hat.
All right. I mean, your headphones are kind of like a hat.
Yeah,
They are on
headwear.
your head. Yeah.
It's headwear.
You could be
Right.
wearing a very small hat, and we just can't see.
Right. It is fairly dark.
Kind
in
of
there.
dark up there. Like,
So,
is it hair?
yeah.
Is it hat?
It's true.
Right.
Could be a very
That's true.
tiny beanie.
So in the
Yep.
chat, I see people were arguing about grunge.
Why? Fill us in, folks. We are going to enter
Apparently,
the
there's an
discourse.
Alice in Chains reference.
Okay.
Is it to do with
And-
the Spoon Man with a spoon?
I mean,
Mm.
like I think even
sure.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
everyone likes Chris Cornell, even if you don't like grunge.
Thanks, Griff.
Oh, sure, anytime.
Yeah.
Jed was pointing out that Spoon Man is a Soundgarden song, not Alice in Chains. I see.
Oh.
Oh, and then Tyler's got
Chris
upset about
Chris
that.
Cornell. Chris Cornell.
Guys, let's all just
There you
try
go.
and get along, you know.
Yeah. Vibes in the chat only.
Good
Dun,
vibes,
dun,
please.
dun, dun,
We
dun,
don't
dun.
want to
And
have
if
to
you
time out
disagree
people.
with Matty, he will ban you.
Yeah,
That's right.
and that's okay because
Yeah.
at the end of the day,
Just
you got
ask
to disagree
OG3.
with me. You had your moment of fame, and then you get banned.
Uh-oh, guys.
Anyway, let's
the-
keep it
the
positive.
Europeans getting fascist with this power. Uh-oh. We know what that means.
What? Oh. Wow, Rohan, thank you. Another hat compliment. How about Ty's hat, guys? Or Griff's
Right.
hat?
Griff deserves the love here on the hat. The hat love. The hat love.
For my metaphorical hat.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Schoolboy Matty over here.
The Seattle Overload podcast is the Balkan crisis of World War III.
Big day for the Balkan crisis. That was on my Twitter timeline from Jesse, friend of the pod.
Repeat what in a British accent?
No, Derek, we don't do British accents.
Oh, no, we certainly do.
None of us do British accents.
I do a British accent.
I bet.
I'm doing it
All
right now.
Americans love doing British accents.
Mhm.
It's like a big thing for them.
Aluminium.
And British people love it when Americans do British accents in their general direction.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, Matty tells me all the time that he loves when I do the accent.
Yeah.
Especially at 5:38 in the morning.
Mhm. Yep.
Matty
Yeah.
also said we're allowed to as well.
Right, it's one of those things where I have to give you permission because the British are really they've had a tough time over the years, haven't they?
Yeah, he gave us the British accent pass.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Brilliant. Okay, should we talk about the Seahawks? We have 93 people in here. Please like the video. This is a
We can.
podcast. I will put in the comment section
Yes, we have
afterwards
to.
that you can skip the preamble. This is the preamble, the infamous preamble, the popular preamble amongst many people, but there are a few haters. So there will be a nice glitzy timestamp. This is a podcast. You can find Seattle Overload on good podcast apps. Download it if you haven't already. Like the video, comment afterwards. Let's do the thing. Should we do the thing?
Do the thing, Matty. Do it.
I'm doing it. Here we go.
All right.
Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast, where the Seattle Seahawks have won their Week 4 Monday Night Football matchup at the New York Giants in a commanding fashion, commanding scoreline. They're victorious by a scoreline of 24-3 points, and they head into a Week 5 bye, now 3-1 on the season. Super, super impressive stuff. Griff, you were saying before we came on air that you kind of spaced out in the second half, which hints at how comfortable with it was for Seattle.
Mhm.
How are you feeling?
Feeling great. They are down 100% of their starting offensive line, at least in terms of, Evan Brown's playing left guard, but he's a center, right?
They're shuffling.
Yeah, they did some shuffling. Geno gets hurt. They're on the road, right? It's so they do all that and they still, smack the home team on the road. So it just goes to, they play the Giants, but it goes to speak of their general competency that, this is a defense that supposedly doesn't have enough pieces or is just another bad start for the Seahawks defense. You've got an incredibly under-equipped offense in total. Obviously, you still have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, but this is supposed to add up to those teams with those situations. If that's truly their situation, they don't go and blow out teams on the road, even if they're a bad team. So I think this is just generally indicative of their general incompetence or general competence in a lot of areas. They've got a lot of firepower, from a lot of different places, and coming from a lot of different places, and still a lot of potential. And we saw some of that potential pick up the slack and start to come to fruition this game too. I mean, what was it? 10, 11 sacks? I can't even count
11.
that high.
11, yeah.
So yeah, it's just there's a lot going on here. And it's good that it's going on.
Ty?
Yeah, I mean, it speaks to their depth with everything that you said, Griff, and it also is a confirmation, another further confirmation of the improvements that we've seen with this defense. Look, yeah, obviously the Giants are down quite a few offensive linemen as well, and they're just generally all over the place offensively. But this is exactly what you're supposed to do in that situation as a defense. I mean, 11 sacks against anyone is insane, and holding anyone to 3 points in the NFL is insane, no matter what the context is.
Right.
But what we saw tonight was just an utter, complete ass beating, right? Like that was so much fun to watch. And yeah, I just kind of spaced out as well during the second half. I mean, the first half was incredibly sloppy on both sides. It was really bad football on both sides for the most part. It was all obviously really scary, but the second half was just complete, utter domination. And, I kind of joked before we hopped on here that I was like almost rooting against the offense just so we could see more defense because this defense was just so fun to watch. And it didn't feel like, even for a second, I mean, the Giants were able to move the ball a little bit, but it was mostly just off script success, like whatever. Like the defense, like it never felt like the Giants were going to threaten for real in this game in the second half. Yeah. So it was sick. It was awesome. Seahawks defense is so back.
Absolutely. I mean, I was so delighted with how the defense was playing. If you're a listener to this podcast, you will know that we love our defense, and seeing how they were hitting, and they were hitting at the end of that Detroit Lions game. They obviously didn't get the stop in the end, but the way they were hitting in this game throughout, getting sacks, beating up on Daniel Jones, kind of bringing into question why Brian Daboll left him out there towards the end of the game, given he was just getting massacred.
He hates Daniel Jones.
He clearly, but it was super, super fun. Overcoming that adversity, and like going into the game as well, I had a really positive feeling, like that in theory, on paper, the way the Seahawks match up with New York, the way that they were missing the left tackle, Andrew Thomas, they're missing Saquon Barkley at running back, the way that the defense had made improvements, they were due this type of game. And obviously, the Giants are 1-3 for a reason, and they were bad in all facets, like every single way they could have been bad. They were bad tonight. Even their extracurricular stuff after the whistle, the myriad, plethora, you could say, of penalties that the officials decided to throw as well. I mean, the Giants only had 6 for 45 yards, and Seattle had 8 for 74 yards. It was a completely flag-filled game. But yeah, the Giants were terrible, but Seattle put them away, and it's the way that the defense was able to do it, which was so encouraging. And David Crockett, a long-time supporter of the podcast, has kindly donated $10 and has pointed out that Mike Sander, The Athletic, is reporting that it's the second best EPA game of the Pete Carroll era.
Wow.
The 58-0 game in 2012 was the highest EPA per game. That's defensive EPA per game. So second best defensive EPA per game of the Pete Carroll era, which is what 11 sacks does. It is before we get to the very exciting moment at Devon Witherspoon, I guess it's worth talking about the two significant injuries. Now, part of the reason I was excited going into this game was Jamal Adams and the fact that the strong safety was returning to action, how we'd see him in Seattle's tweaked defense, maybe playing a bit of the big nickel role in this system and getting chances off the edge. He had a missed sack. He had a nice big hit in the flat. And then he tackles Daniel Jones running out of the pocket, brings him up short of the first down marker. And unfortunately, he dipped his head. Pretty dangerous. He got concussed, was removed from the game by the independent neurologist expert. That's not the official title, but the NFL's person was visibly frustrated. And Ty, you're nodding away. That was a bummer.
Yeah, that was a huge bummer, and obviously you got to feel for Jamal, right? The guy can't catch a break. It's so brutal. I mean, he works for over a year now to make his way back on the field, and within the first few plays of him getting back out there, he gets concussed, and it looked bad. Like he looked visibly like pretty messed up from it. I totally understand his frustration on the sideline, because I mean that's just taken away from him, like I said.
Twitter during that period, Ty, like people, even the broadcast was kind of weird with it. Like, this guy has come back from tearing something like his quadricep off his kneecap, basically. And people are surprised that he's a bit upset that, one, also, if he's concussed, he's not going to be quite thinking right. And two, you'd be damn upset if that's how it's ended when this was going to be a primetime big comeback, all he's been through. The reaction and just the general narrative around Adams in general is just so screwed up. Like,
I mean that's Twitter for you. That's Twitter for you. Completely unsurprising. Very disappointing, but completely unsurprising. The reaction to all of it. A lot of people looking for an opportunity to confirm their priors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever. We're not getting that anymore at a time. It's just it's such a bummer for him. But hey, I got to say, he looked good. He looked good. There was obviously some concerns about what the injury would do to his athleticism, and to me, it's obviously just a TV broadcast, but like it looked like he wasn't really skipping a beat there. Like, he looked fast. He looked like he was hitting. Like, he looked good. He looked like Jamal Adams. Yeah. So that's really exciting for whenever he gets back.
Athletically, he was clearly moving around well, which is the main thing you look for, as you're saying, Ty. And then he was kind of making plays out on the perimeter, and then beyond that, like, I don't know what he was doing in coverage. Obviously, we kind of need the tape for that. Only 10, 11 snaps. But we can at least parse his usage and what their plan for him is, at least the base of it. It's unfortunate though. God, just what terrible luck. And like the way he came down, like that's a really awkward tackle to make. Because Daniel Jones is a great athlete in the open field. So you're coming down full speed. If you break down, there's a strong chance you're going to get shook. So he's trying to roll his shoulders through his knees, and things are moving at 1,000 miles per hour, not literally, of course, and they're changing on a dime, like every microsecond. So, I don't think his aiming point is Daniel Jones' right kneecap or whatever it was with the crown of his helmet. It's just shook out that way. And we've seen Quandre Diggs come down in the alley and drive his entire upper body, shoulders, head, helmet, and all into guys' legs and thighs and everything. So it's just an really unfortunate timing of it. And bad luck. And that's a play that could have happened at any point in the game too. It's not like, it could have happened 5 weeks from now. It's just bad luck that just so happens to have come, after this, 3 seasons in a row of substantial injury.
Well, and on a positive note, I'm glad it's not more serious, because when the head dips like that, really bad things can happen with the spine. And if as the Seahawks themselves know, with the way that they coach their tackling system generally of using shoulder contact, when their head dips, it really can compress energy down the spine and end in some cases in paralysis or even worse, death. So don't want to get too extreme, but you can appreciate at least that it was only a concussion. And the way Pete Carroll's talking, he said it was just a blip or a glitch, and that he'll be back, for the Bengals game. And it was great. The big thing Pete always focusing on the positive, but the big thing is that Adams was able to prepare for this game. Now, the other scare Seattle had was even more significant, which was Geno Smith. Bizarre play where he throws the ball, he gets batted by a lineman. Decent pass protection on the play, by the way. He catches the ball, runs out of bounds, heads up play from Geno, although, maybe he could have accidentally batted it to the floor and had a pass break up instead. Regardless, as he's going out of bounds, a defender latches onto the back of his jersey, the kind of collar of the jersey, starts pulling down on it, releases from that horse collar action, so they don't call that, and then lands with basically all of his body weight on the back of Geno's right calf / knee. And Geno's hobbling around. It looks weird. He's visibly upset about it. Yeah. Let me find the player. It was
Isaiah Simmons.
Isaiah Simmons. There you go. Visibly upset about how that happened. Stays in the game, throws a screen, almost gets picked off and taken to the house by Kayvon Thibodeau, falls incomplete. Yeah. And on the next drive, that was happening with about 10 minutes left in the second quarter. The next drive, Drew Lock comes in at quarterback, and Ty, you're thinking like big yikes, right?
I'm thinking this is incredible for content and memes, but also I'm terrified, and I hope Geno is okay. And Drew comes out and he's just ripping it, man. That's just what Drew does, right?
He was not ripping it. He was yeeting it, and it was falling just incomplete, breaking out the pocket. It was terrifying.
Yeah, no, it was very terrifying. But he's playing with confidence. They get him on the QB draw, he runs for a first down. And then obviously, converts a 3rd and 10 to Noah Fant, which is cool, awesome, great.
A 51-yarder
keeps the drive alive. But then the Giants, with some of the worst tackling you will ever see in your life, down the sideline, allows Noah to get all the way down to the 1 there. It looked like it was going to be a touchdown, but knee was down right before he was able to cross the plane. But
great blocking from Tyler Lockett there as well to secure the sideline.
There you go. That was a wild drive. I mean, this game, like, that was when it reached like peak sicko vibes on the night. That was, I have no other words other than that was crazy. That was crazy, and that kind of sums up just how wild the first half of this game was. And thankfully, things kind of calmed down in the second half. Because I don't know if I could have handled another 30 minutes of that.
Drew Lock takes.
Who was the one that dropped his crossing route? Was that Tyler or Jackson?
That was Jackson down the sideline. Yeah.
I wanted that caught.
I don't know if that. Are we talking about the sprint out?
Yeah.
I don't think that was a drop. I think Drew Lock just threw that at like a 500 miles per hour.
Yeah, maybe.
Or I might be thinking of a different play. But
anytime Drew's out there, I want to see Waldron just call like.
Oh, there was the sprint out was Parkinson, I think, or Bobo.
No, there was definitely one to JSN.
There was one where he like threw it in the dirt, but I think the JSN one was across.
Felt like quite a lot of in the dirt.
I was on the phone.
He had 3 incompletions. He had 3 incompletions.
There you go.
Yeah. I was on the phone with customer support.
Oh, okay.
for something when that play happened. I was ready to check out.
Thankfully Geno Smith did return to the game. When he left the game, he had 9 completions, 11 attempts. Did you know
in New York, which is really tone deaf of him.
But thankfully he returned, and after the game, it's come out that he had MRIs, and clearly those weren't that severe for him to return to the game in the second half. And it's come out that they've wrapped up his ankle, so clearly some twisting went on there, and he's twisted his knee, and Pete Carroll said he'll be sore tomorrow. But it sounds like they've avoided a complete disaster, which is great news, because you need your starting quarterback. I don't really know what happened in the second half from an offensive perspective. Before we talk about that, though, the main story of this game, I don't want to get sidetracked. The main story of this game is rookie 5th selection overall in the draft, ahead of Jalen Carter, who, let's stop talking about Jalen Carter, because this man has more sacks than Jalen Carter now.
Jalen Carter would have scored 2 touchdowns on the pick 6.
Cornerback Devon Witherspoon, who got to star a bit in the nickel role, which I know there's a lot of consternation about that from people as well, putting him closer to the football, letting his instincts shine in more areas, run and pass, blitzing off the edge, closer to the ball as well, closer to the quarterback, Daniel Jones. What a damn game this guy had. He had 2 sacks. He had...
I don't remember his second sack. I've been wondering that this whole time.
Was that on one of those ones that went out to the sideline? Where
it must have been like Jones a running guy out of bounds.
Yeah.
Seven tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and obviously that glorious pick 6 where the Giants looked like they were kind of making something happen. Obviously, Jason Myers had missed a field goal. Felt like, hang on, is this going to get closer than it should be? And then no, it's just basically put the game on ice. It takes it into a 21-3 game. It's just beautiful. You get Julian Love and Reek Woolen busting their ass down the field to escort him into the end zone. Awesome. But Ty Spoon kind of showed the entire vision of his game, and they kept throwing his way, and he kept smacking guys.
Yeah. You can see he still has a little bit of things to work on. He just needs to keep seeing more football. But man, his ability to impact the game is just so, like, his floor is so high. And that's even with like these kind of like, rapscallion little moments where he's like, oh shoot, I need to be right here, type of stuff. So like he's gonna just skyrocket, man. He's something else. I mean, he just kind of he's got that, he's not just talented, like he just kind of has that, what you can only describe as that natural sense that Pete, like that, hard to nail down, that je ne sais quoi that you can't really put your finger on, that Troy Polamalu had, that Earl Thomas had. Obviously, we're talking about what Richard Sherman had, to finally use a corner to comp him to, at least in that sense, that Pete Carroll's talked about. Like, he's just got it, and this is his 3rd game, 3rd week of like actual NFL activity too, period.
They were trying to set up a pass on the Paris Campbell play. So like that happened so fast I didn't even register that's what was happening.
I thought it was really behind. And thank you, Ghosty Boy, for pointing that out in the chat, that was the second sack, the Paris Campbell. I thought it was super behind the line of scrimmage, and I was a bit like, uh-oh. But immediately, like, uh-oh, it's a double play. Spoon's going to got here. But they must have been playing him in cover 2 or whatever. But immediately he flew up and made the tackle, like, bang. Like, there was no time to get that off at all. I mean, overall on the defense, the way that they were just able to get bodies flying down to the hot route, flying down to the blitz beating route, or just the check down and make the tackle, and they just kind of, it was Russian coverage working together exactly the way they envisioned. I think the Giants also did like an abysmal job in terms of how they game plan for their missing guys and their poor protection, but Seattle capitalized to like a brilliant extent.
Yeah. Right. Like if you're going to play the Giants, hold them to 3 points, right? Like you can't do better than that with the exception of a field goal. Like as David Crockett
and a 55-yarder,
Exactly. And as David Crockett pointed out, it's like their second best statistical defensive performance. The first best since that 58 shellacking of the Cardinals almost 10 years ago, 10 plus years ago now. But yeah, Matty, like you said, rush and coverage working together, we see how pass rush can help you defend. A 4-man rush can help the second level leverage and stay spaced for and constrict and tackle the check down. Like it's the theory coming full circle here, because the whole point of the front structure they're in is so that no matter what the situation is, they have angles for their edge rushers and angles for the interior spacing across the board to get pressure on the quarterback. But most of those fronts, if you lean all the way into that, it's a soft front, even if your players are good, and you're going to get ran on. So with the changes they've made, the technique changes that you've talked about ad nauseum, you talked about in your fixing the Seahawks run defense run fit video that just came out last week, and what we've been talking about for months and really a couple of years now, the technique changes, and then the run fit rules, the run fit mechanic at the second level is different this year, is combining for them able to defend the run, not just defend the run, but absolutely kill it with plug and play players on the interior, is allowing them to stay in this front so that they can always rush the passer. We're finally seeing the pass rush talent catch up to what it could be. And we're seeing how that affects the second level's ability to then tackle the check down. Obviously, pass rush makes it easier to defend the second and third level, but the operating premise here is that they already have the back seven talent to do that without a pass rush, which is what they've done 3 years running. They've always managed to do that. It's the check down that's still killing them, which rears its ugly head on second downs. Their performance on second downs were good against the Lions. It was good last week against the Panthers. It was dominant this week. The point is, like, there's a clear trend there. As everything else normalizes, the performance of the second and third level on passes to those areas, the second down performance will be waiting for them, and there'll be a complete defense. And I think this is the first week where we saw all of that come together. So, I mean, yeah, an equivalent performance accounting for a better team might mean 20 points. It might mean 14. It might mean 23. We don't know yet till it happens with decent efficiency with each one. But, I mean, they're I think they're playing with just about a full deck now in terms of what they want to be schematically, health-wise. I mean, they're really getting there. And I'm really curious to see what the tape shows. Like, did they find a way to make Bobby fit better in coverage? So where he's not as much of a, I don't want to say hindrance, but like there are some contexts in coverage where he's a problem and you can't really do anything about it. Did they figure that out this game?
And there were some scary moments, right? Like at the start of the game where little pass rush was kind of struggling, and they had all day on the play action, but the coverage held up. And then as the game progressed, they started sprinkling in pressure. Guys started coming off the edge in the way that we kind of envisioned would happen, and it did against play action shot, and even against how Daniel Jones likes to just be mobile and just off his blind side like that Witherspoon sack. And, other statistics which reflect their dominance. The Giants held under 250 total yards on offense. Running backs held to 2.2 yards per carry on 39 carries. Again, the run defense performing. But then Seattle, after a kind of spotty start on third down efficiency, the Giants went 6 for 16, so 38% below that 50% figure that they like. But I mean, Ty, the Giants were bad, but this is something to be pumped up about.
Yeah, like I said earlier, like no matter what the context is, the performance that the Seahawks had tonight is amazing. It's incredibly impressive. Yeah, I mean, it looked a little bit sketchy there to start the game, but the Giants were moving the ball a little bit, but it feels like, especially as the game progressed, most of the success that the Giants were having, on offense was just off script stuff. Like it wasn't really anything that's like real. It wasn't like they were just straight up getting beat. It was a lot of like fluky stuff. Daniel Jones, scrambling, stuff like that. Like whatever. You live with that. Yeah, overall, I mean, it was just...
it was big time broken plays, wasn't it? To be fair. Yeah. There was like that one bust where it was like man coverage, and whoever was meant to take the back out of the backfield on the rub route didn't. But after that, it was like Jones making stuff happen with his legs. And then when Seattle started rushing with a bit more integrity and then bringing some pressure to kind of close up those interior escape lanes, it was just over. I mean, Wagner, 2 sacks. Witherspoon, 2 sacks, as we've said. Jordan Brooks, 2 sacks. Uchenna Nwosu, 2 sacks. Boye Mafe, 1 sack. Mario Edwards Jr., a sack. Miles Adams, 1 sack. And then, of course, Spoon had his pick 6, and Quandre Diggs had a kind of comical interception over the middle. Just complete dominance. So really, really impressive performance from them.
Yeah.
Now, if I mean, we don't want to move on from the defense because it was great.
I think that's a good strategy.
Our friends over at Cigar Thoughts, do you think the Seahawks should pile up 11 sacks per game moving forward? Speaking for me, and only for me, we're not a monolith, but yes, I would be in favor of that.
Yeah.
I second that.
Possibly 12, but
right.
Well, no, Matty, I prefer 11.
Okay. Well, you do.
Yeah.
Now, offensively, again, it was a very strange game, and Seattle's pass protection at times in this game, especially with the way they're tested by what Wink Martindale throws at teams. But also, that's a really talented interior duo, something Pete Carroll mentioned after the game, with Dexter Lawrence and the other guy whose name I forgot. But those two caused problems, and I felt Waldron kind of curled up a bit. I felt they were trying to find the touchdown play, and the intermediate passing went missing at times. And I felt also just the pass protection visibly limited what Geno was able to access on plays which looked like they had a shot down the field. And then there was perhaps like a lack of run game sprinkling. But, 3 for 12 on third down, they won't be happy about that on offense. It's only a 25% conversion percentage. Yeah. And considering Geno only missed 2 drives and he came back into the game, and whatever they did in that locker room, he looked unaffected. There was one throw he didn't step into and it fluttered in there. But then after that, that was more like his decision with the interior pass protection, I think. But after that, he looked... You wouldn't have been able to tell if someone hadn't told you. So...
Yeah.
Ty, are you worried about the offense, or was it just nice that they got away with it and they didn't really have to be good, did they?
Yeah, no, they didn't. I mean, like I said, there wasn't really any threat of the Giants getting back into this game, especially after the pick 6. I'm not concerned about it, especially, Geno's playing through something. I mean, it didn't really look like it, but I'm sure he's still dealing with the pain. But that's just who Geno is, right? He's just battling out there. He's competing. So, yeah, not concerned. I thought the run game looked pretty good. I kind of wish that we saw more of it at times, especially like the duo runs were like it felt like they were going to bust one finally, and they did towards the end there. I'm not concerned overall about the offense. It's just there's a lot of context there, and obviously the offensive line, right? You're playing with 4 backups plus your center out of position. What can you do?
It's impressive that they're finding their footing and team chemistry and the running backs as well.
Yeah.
On those on the under center runs, like you said, with all the injuries with duo, even outside zone, mid zone, they're really just kind of feeling it out. So that's encouraging to see. I think ultimately though, Matty, there were some frustrating elements of the offense. If Geno doesn't get hurt, and if that doesn't throw everything off, and if Phil Haynes doesn't get hurt and Damian Lewis, I think they're fine and play decently throughout the game. In the first half, like you said, Geno was 9 for 11, and his success rate was 50-something%, which is really high still. So, and they just need eliminate the sacks that they get and hit an explosive, and all of a sudden it's just a standard Geno game, standard Seahawks offense game. But as far as those frustrating things, how Waldron seems to be a reactive play caller to his available personnel, I feel like we just need to put a pause button on what the identity of the offense is, and we're not just talking run and pass splits. We're talking about the actual design of the calls and what he's going for and everything. We probably just need to put a pause on that till everyone gets healthy. Which fortunately they have a well-timed bye week coming up, so and then we'll just see from there. But what they were this week, and even what they were against the Panthers, isn't what they want to be schematically, despite the results being great. They were what they needed to be for that week, right? And the Lions game too. But yeah, there's so much more meat on the bone here. So,
and I thought Waldron did some cool stuff in this game too, some of the boots and everything. I thought it was really interesting what he was doing. And Geno was great in the first half before he got hurt. Some of the improvisation stuff that he was doing was awesome. The throw on the touchdown to DK
tie,
the adjustment that DK made, great. Yeah.
You impressed with his catch as well?
Yeah, the first down catch they had, in the second quarter? I can't remember when exactly it was. He's just using his hands. It was amazing. He just attacked the ball. It was awesome. That's something that we haven't really seen from DK. That was I was kind of joking, but in general, honestly, it was kind of one of the more impressive things from the whole night for the offense. Was wow, that's actual growth from DK.
Yeah. I mean, he's making a concerted effort to catch away from his body and pronating his hands. That's half the battle. He's not trying to catch everything underhanded and chop up his steps so that he can time up a basket catch or trapping the ball with his chest. He's just letting his feet do what they're doing, let his hands extend away from his body irrespective of his stride. And that will embolden Geno's Geno knows, all right, I'll rip this because DK will magnetize the ball. Even if he doesn't come down with it, it's still allowing for even if he drops one, if he does that consistently, he'll probably get more targets in different situations. So his denominator in the sample will grow and the numerator will. But I mean, he might be less efficient in a vein, like maybe per target, but like per route, he might be more efficient if he does this. So, and I think that's what we're seeing. Like,
yeah, it's given him the best, or it's putting him in the best position to succeed, right? Like, and that's what you want to see out of it, especially now. What is year 5, and it was pretty much the same, and now we're actually seeing him take that next step, and it's just, that's kind of what I was wondering going into the last couple of years with DK, is like, is there another gear that he can kick into? And I think now we're seeing that come to fruition here.
Yeah. Agreed.
So finally, before we get on to how the officials and the broadcast and some closing thoughts, Gord has kindly donated $5.
Thank you, Gord.
This is my first year full-time follow.
Sure.
Is this a similar format as previous years? Guests and pre-game shows, midweek content, great post-game show. Thank you very much, Gord.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
This is the first year of us doing it with this format, so good to have you on board, and we will aim to continue this because I think it's going quite well. And then I saw later on, Gord, that you were asking in chat about, do super chat and super stickers give money? Yes, we get all of that money, but there is also no pressure on people, but there is another option to contribute, which is the Stripe link in the description, and we split it all a third. So thanks very much for the donation as well, Gord. Appreciate you. Now, MetLife Stadium, love it, because the Seahawks defense turned into the Legion of Boom there, and it always seems like a very comfortable blowout, and the Giants quarterback often does like some really stupid things, or the Jets quarterback. When was the last time Seattle played at the Jets? At MetLife?
2016, the CJ Spiller game, Tanner McAvoy game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Was that the game that Cliff Averill just went all the way off?
Didn't Sherm pick off like Fitzpatrick like twice in that game?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Fitzpatrick's always a great quarterback to watch when he's like clinging in the pocket, or he was at least. But the Giants were like one of those bad teams who were super, super dirty. And Geno Smith in his post-game presser was kind of cool about the hit, but in his sideline, I don't know if you saw the on-field interview he did with Lisa Salters, but he was calling it a dirty play and saying there was no place in the sport for a play like that. Do we have any other thoughts on that? I mean, I don't know how that wasn't a flag when the officials were throwing flags left, right, center. It felt like one flag every 3 plays. And if the Giants had actually been a good team, this game would probably have finished at midnight Eastern time.
Dude, yeah, the refs could have let some of the calls go.
But then how's the Geno one not a horse call?
It's
Tom Brady
super
gets
inconsistent. Call. Yeah, it's super inconsistent. Absolutely, it's super inconsistent. I don't necessarily think that play was inherently dirty. I think it's just kind of ball happening, but it absolutely should be a penalty. I don't get how that's not called. Yeah, I just thought that was silly, and Geno has every right to be annoyed, especially it seemed like he was alluding in his press conference to coaches, like Giants coaches, kind of taunting him after that play happened. And that's kind of what set him off. Obviously, he got an unsportsmanlike penalty after he came back for the game.
And then he came back and was hitting some really tight window throws too.
Yeah.
And some of them got called back too. But I mean, he was dealing, like Geno, honestly, he was set up for having a really good Geno game.
Yeah.
And then just this situation just fell apart on him.
Yeah, I think that's just a product of the injury for him, and then the injuries to the O-line, and just kind of game state, all that.
Yeah, man. Thankful for a bye week.
Yeah. In terms of that bye week, Seattle has the next week off, and then they go into Cincinnati and take on the Bengals, who Joe Burrow obviously struggling with his calf injury, where he's lacking the usual mobility, escapability, play extension stuff that he has. Now, Cincinnati on their schedule, I think they don't have a bye, do they?
I don't think so.
Just check
I think they're playing next week. Yeah.
No, they don't. They play the Cardinals at the Cardinals, so no respite for them. Seattle needs to get healthy. The offensive line, as Griff mentioned earlier in the show, they were seriously banged up. Damian Lewis left the game on the car. Evan Brown, who'd left the game at center for Olu Oluwatimi to slot in, then had to come back and play left guard, which he looked like he was in pain on one of the plays where they kind of did a close up on him after Anthony Bradford came in at right guard for Phil Haynes. Obviously, you got Jake Curhan, who I do feel had some rough moments this game. I noticed on the broadcast when I hadn't maybe in previous games. And then, you had Stone Forsyth on the left side. Now, Charles Cross, he was inactive this game. We did hear that was a 1 to 2 game thing. And perhaps he could have played in this game if Forsyth hadn't looked so, relatively comfortable. I'm sure he'll be back for the Bengals. Obviously, Abraham Lucas, I think, would be eligible to come 1, 2,
It
3.
might be one more week.
He might have to wait one more, So we'll see if Curhan goes there, or maybe they slot Forsyth on the right side, which is difficult.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask, because he's played that spot before, but that's not an easy thing to just be like, hey, now you go play on the right side. So do we think that's what's going to happen here? Because I don't know. I feel like Forsyth probably gives you a better shot than Curran, but again, it's such a difficult thing to just ask him to suddenly slide over there.
Yeah, he has played right tackle in college, and he was fine, but he seemed more comfortable at left tackle, maybe with enough reps. I think they'd stick
with Curhan, wouldn't they?
I think they'd stick with Curran because continuity is gold.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah,
and the run blocking, like Jake's run blocking is fine. I don't think there's a huge drop off from Abraham.
Yeah,
right. And then
they're running the ball well, and I don't think they want to.
Yeah, no, Curran had a couple of
nasty pancakes.
He had a couple of really nice blocks on the runs tonight. It was just pass pro for him. Had some legit struggles against Thibodeau tonight.
And it came in a. It's not like he did. Like, I'm not saying like it was good actually, but it's comforting that it came like with a singular theme. He wasn't getting beat every which way. Like, he's just oversetting in Thibodeau in college, and anytime he's played football, has a really reactive inside move if he reads a jump set or an overset. And like, that's what Thibodeau does. He feasts on that stuff. And Jake Curhan was jump setting Kayvon Thibodeau for some reason. I'm not sure why, but like, he wasn't losing the deep edge or the deep arc as he usually does when he loses, and he wasn't getting bull rushed really. So like, I'll take that. If you're talking about like, can the offense be functional with Jake Curhan out there, and as you try to improve week to week, like, I'll take the way he lost and had a rough game in protection as you're trying to project forward. Across the board, this O-line sustained so much regression, and yes, it hurt the offense, but there was still some, again, like, functionality here. It's not like complete abject system failure.
Yeah. He opened his press conference praising, various positions for like filling in when, starters were out, but particularly the offensive line, Griff. So he's impressed too. And Will in the chat has kindly donated $5 to give a shout out to the offensive line. Given their injuries and only giving up 2 sacks. One of them coming right at the end as well, didn't it, Will?
Yeah. Wait, guys, we got to talk about one thing about defense, though, when we're able.
Let's do it. What's up?
U-turn, baby. We said U-turn. Defensive U-turn. And not only, and the hashtag is no longer since week 6. It's now hashtag
since week 2.
What? Sorry.
For all downs, we can do since week 4.
No. How has there been a defensive U-turn?
Because, what do you mean? Is this one of your? Is this like classic English dry humor? What am I missing?
Oh, because are you saying from 2022?
No, from the classic patented early season rough start.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It wasn't rough. They stopped the run well. They just had a bad day on third down.
That's why I was saying since week 2. I mean, I know week 2 wasn't great either on the whole.
All right,
but great. So there's no U-turn. So you're just trying to
no.
I mean, there's definitely a U-turn from at least.
It doesn't fit.
The aggregate EPA is still bad weeks 2 and week 3. What we used to project forward to them being good overall was the early down performance week 2 and week 3, and the run defense being stable all throughout. So, I mean, really, it's more of like a gradual climb. We should call it the climb.
Okay.
But our brand here at Seattle Overload is U-turn. Right. So they climbed into a U-turn. They have now U-turned in the aggregate, Matty.
They went up a hill, found a roundabout, U-turn. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for that. Thank you.
But it's hashtag since week 4, parenthetically all downs.
Okay, cool.
Will asked how much of this game helps with the Mariners pain. A lot. I was actually telling these guys I really needed this. I really needed the dopamine.
Yeah, because what's important here, guys, is Ty's happy now. Okay?
That's right. My mental health is the most important thing.
Right. I mean, that is important. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, no, yeah. See, I put you in a corner. You couldn't say anything else.
David, thank you very much, David. Kind donation. Big ups to Andy Dickerson, and also love to Evan Brown for what he's been doing at center. Appreciate you guys. Do a DK breakdown video. Maybe, David.
I've been telling them to do it. I've been telling them.
David, if you keep donating, then we'll just have to do what you say, won't we? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, Evan's
now, guys,
Evan Brown's a good center.
Yeah,
just straight
up. He's a very good center. Played okay at left guard, I think, as well. Now,
I wonder how Olu did today.
I saw blocking people, like on the ground at least.
Yeah.
Other injuries for the bye week. Obviously, Jamal Adams should be back. Kobe Bryant missed this game with what sounds like turf toe. Was seen in a walking boot by someone on Twitter. And then the team announced that he was out for this game. Trey Brown should be back from his concussion. Artie Burns probably should be back from his hamstring thing. Depends how severe that is. Nick Ballore will be back after missing this game, the special teams captain, after the birth of his child. So congratulations, Nick Ballore. And then, Charles Cross, as we said. So they're going to get healthier. The other significant thing which happened in this game was Jaron Reed leaving later on. He's playing through a groin strain and something else that they mentioned on the broadcast. But he got kicked. He got kicked in the shin, and Pete said it wasn't broken. It's just like it hurt, and the game was in a state where he didn't need to go back in, was it? But hopefully he's okay, because he's a massive factor on this defensive line. Check out Griff's video on him.
Yeah, he had another good game rushing the passer too. Like he was making his impact. I'm really curious to watch the tape and see how they rushed Jones early on and then how they rushed him later in the game, because the scrambles did seem to stop. And I think that the interior were getting too upfield, and I think they just kind of resorted to like mush rushing or contain rushing. So like when the 3 technique had a 2-way go, they're not using the inside move anymore. When every 3 technique, no matter who it was last week, if the center was sliding away from them, they were crossing face on the guard, because that A gap is basically the guard's on an island because he doesn't have help to his A gap. In this game, if they were the 3 technique, if the center slid away, at least in the first quarter, he's just still rushing the B gap. I'm like, why is Jaron not crossing face? Because I was looking for that specifically, because that's clearly their process and what they're being coached to do, and they all have good counter moves, Miles, Edwards, and Reed, if Reed finds himself as a 3 technique. So I was wondering where that was, and they weren't. Well, they were, I think, trying to early on, and then come the second quarter, third quarter, they're just staying in the B gap. So they weren't getting their wins as frequently, but I think that his blower started to pop. It had
to be by design.
Yeah. But then they started to pop anyway, just because Jaron's really fucking good.
Well, I want to know how many of the sacks that they had today, how many of the 11 sacks, and then the various pressures too, came when Seattle sent 5 or more rushers, or were when Seattle, was doing a bonus fire zone, so a pressure concept, but still rushing only 4 guys, because it seemed like a high percentage. They couldn't deal with it.
I mean, the 11 sack number obviously is just like 50% of that is Jones being a goofball. But
and whatever the heck, the coverage concept, the route concept was downfield. Like, it seemed Seattle was just able to clamp up stuff.
Right.
And I know Giants fans are disappointed in their receivers and how their front office has acquired receiving talent. Vince asks if Witherspoon sacks have been Jamal's if he didn't get hurt, if he knows how he's used for 9 plays. Probably not the second one, but some of the blitzes were how Jamal would be used to, so that is instructive moving forwards. Yeah,
right. And I think they have like an auto check against under center. If you get zone away from you, that overhang to the field is just being sent. I think that's what they're doing, because they're just trying to steal like rush attempts, basically.
Right, because you're playing palms over there anyway, probably.
That's right, yeah. So or if it's cover 3, you just fire zone it, right?
Right. Diggs had a really nice play, making a quick tackle on it was like a 3-yard gain, but it was such an elaborate 3-yard gain. He was like the hot to 2 player coming down in the slot.
The Right. The principle with Jamal and now, I mean, Devon and the combination there, and right, and probably Julian Love too, is to get them their blitz attempts via the least cost or the least expensive ways to scheme them up. Like just like you're blitzing just out of your structure, and as the offense gives you certain formations, you're just blitzing those formations as a rule. It's less like you're not like bobbing and weaving pre-snap with 6 moving parts. Like if you want to do that on third down, great, but your base structure is not being compromised. You're just like, hey, here's our base structure. When it's Jamal or Devon in there, we can activate them here. When Jamal's playing, the dime jack or the dime will on a 2nd and 8, against 11 personnel, like, you can play around with him mugging the B gap and have him be part of a 5-man rush or a sim pressure, right? But it's not like you're not going full Wink Martindale, or Rob Ryan.
On that point as well, it's sort of a point of how they're not like bastardizing their structure to make plays. Like they're doing things within their overall structure to try and like combat the weakness or the problem area that the offensive formation, the set presents itself. But on that Daniel Jones 4th down conversion where he picked it up with his legs and Matty took a bad angle, I found it really interesting how on the sideline beforehand, like Pete Carroll sees the Giants come out in the formation that they're in, which was like 12 personnel, like threatening like a duo type of run. Yeah. They actually got like a play action off of that, which they covered up well, and Matty should have made the play. He just had a slightly bad angle to Jones. It's tough. Like Jones kind of suckered him and then got the edge. But Carroll before that looked really like he looked kind of concerned because I think he was worried about the personnel presenting a problem for that overall structure. But they actually defended it well. But it's kind of to your point, Griff. Now, Ty, do you have any closing thoughts?
I think again, this is just another confirmation of the improvements that we're seeing with this defense. Yeah, is it on the extreme side tonight? Sure. I don't think we're going to see another performance that's necessarily like this, but I think you're going to see, as long as they're able to stay healthy, that the momentum continues week by week by week by week. Especially as these guys grow more comfortable together playing with one another, and especially once they do get Jamal back and have this secondary at full strength, I think that just does wonders for them. So I'm very excited about what we're seeing. I think this was just a glimpse into what this defense can ultimately be. Again, results wise, it's probably not going to be this extreme, obviously, but I think this can be a legitimately good defense, and paired with what this offense can be and what we've seen this offense be, I think that's very exciting for what the future holds for this team. Also, Devon Witherspoon is very good at football.
Yep.
Good player.
Yeah, indeed. We shouldn't forget about Tariq Woolen. Like his name didn't come up because he probably just shut down his side, right?
Yeah.
Like we're all fascinated with Devon as we should be, but like Woolen, hopefully we watch the tape back. It's like, oh, okay, Tariq's back.
Yeah,
not that he would have been challenged much this game anyway because of their offense, the nature of their offense, but
right.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us. Tyler Johnson, thank you so much for your donation. I'm trying to show it on the screen. It won't let me. There you go. And also Reflect the Sun, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
I know Reflect the Sun, you've supported the show in the past as well, so thank you, guys. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Please do like the video, comment. It really helps us out if you share this with a friend, a significant other, anyone.
Your enemies.
The guy down the pub, that sort of thing. And comment, just support the show whatever way you can. But it's been cool having a really positive podcast where we're realistic. Like, it was a great victory. We can enjoy this break. We'll still have content coming out. We'll have a Bengals preview with our guests. Griff and I will still do film breakdowns. On my Substack, SeahawksOnTape.com, I will have an article about how Pete Carroll is doing things that he did in 2014, but in a 2023 way to do what he's doing now, and how he's it's a defensive front explainer, sort of breaking down how Seattle's doing their 2023 defense, which can be very detailed, very nerdy. Griff, Ty, you have any content you want to promote?
I don't know how many of you are interested in content related to a certain baseball team that plays in the city of Seattle, but if you're not too broken up about that, check out the Locked On Mariners podcast. We're still going strong. 5 days a week.
Shohei coming.
Shohei, Juan Soto, Cody Bellinger. They're signing them all.
All three? Wow.
Yeah,
Superstars.
They got to
You
trade
heard
for
it
Juan
here
Soto, but
first.
yeah, they're getting all of them.
It's
we'll
All-Star
tell you
weekend every weekend.
That's right, baby. We're just gonna overcorrect to the absolute extreme, because why not? But yeah, so we're going 5 times a week still on there. So if you still want Mariners content pretty much every single day, you know where to find us. Locked On Mariners on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And yeah,
Griff.
That's right. You guys, if you're listening to this, you know where to find me. We don't.
Right.
I'm out there coping in the ether, as always.
There's no need to cope.
It's really easy to cope when you're a fan of the Seahawks because you have one of the most successful teams the last 10 years.
Right.
Griffin, how do you manage to be so optimistic? Well, Pete Carroll coached Seahawks. That's how.
Right. Naturally. At J Brooks Spin Move on Twitter.
Yeah, Jay. Oh, we might need to. Yeah, we might need to do a brand pivot. I don't know, man.
We didn't even talk how Jordan Brooks was amazing. We'll do that in the film podcast.
Jordan Brooks was
also
incredible.
Oh my god, we didn't talk about Pete Carroll's hip thrust.
Dude,
Pete Carroll's pelvic thrusting on the sideline.
there were some good clips of Pete tonight. Some good photos.
There was some very good Pete content tonight.
Well, there you go.
He's a viral young man.
That can happen in another podcast. Right, time for bed. It's 6:30 a.m. here. Lots of love, everyone. Have a good night.
Lots of love.